My next exercise, working with colored pencil, is to do a form. So we're going to work with the sphere because the sphere is the most difficult of the four forms we have worked with in the past. And since you have already done it in graphite, the same concept is there. You will have your highlight, your midtones, you'll have your core shadow, your reflected light, and a shadow. So when we do this, you're going to create 4 spheres, and you're going to use 4 of the techniques that we had from our value scales. So to begin, I'm going to start by drawing my spheres on my paper. So your minimum size for your spheres can be a 1.5 inch radius. So we're looking for about a 3-inch sphere. So if you have a compass, find your 1.5 inch radius and draw your circle. Now you can draw one at a time. You can go ahead and draw all 4 on here, but make sure you're drawing these light, because we want the outside of the sphere to be shown through our colored pencil technique and not a dark outline. So what I like to do is draw my spheres. And if you don't have a compass at home, you can find something that's about the same size as a 3-inch radius and apply that, trace it onto your paper. And once you have your circles made, what I like to do then is just to come in, very gentle pressure. I'm not pressing a lot, and I just like to kind of go over my pencil lines to lighten those up. And I do that to all of them. So on the other side here, I already have my 4 spheres drawn on and the outline of them lightened up. With my 4 spheres in place, I'm going to start with one. Which one is up to you. I tend to work from my top left, across to the right, down and across to the right. Similar to how I read, but that's because I'm right-handed. And I know if I start in this area and work along the top before I work at the left and bottoms, then I have less chance of smearing things with my hand. So now that I have my spheres drawn on, I'm going to take a look at my value scale sheet. So in our previous practices, we did several different types of value scales using some different colored pencils and techniques. So looking at these, I want to choose at least 4 to create my sphere. So since I was really interested in working with the last one of the last ones we worked with, the ones that we dubbed underpaintings, because it's similar to a technique used in painting. And it had the blue shadow area, the green midtone area, and the yellow highlight area. I think I definitely want to try a sphere with that. So I'm going to start with that one. So I pulled out from my Prismacolor set a blue and a yellow. And before I start shading though, what I need to do is identify where my light source is and where my highlight's going to be. I'm going to put my light source to the left and above, so my highlight's going to be in this area. And when I work with a sphere, I will lightly give myself an idea of where that highlight will be. I don't know if that reads too well on the camera, but I just want it barely there, especially when working with colored pencil, because I don't want any of the graphite to show. So I can still see it. Again, I'm not sure how well it picks up on camera, but now that I know where my highlight is and where my light source is, so my light source is shining this direction, that means that since I'm using the technique where yellow is my light highlight areas and blue get into my shadow regions, and the mixture of them will be near my midtones, I'm going to start with the yellow. Now I'm going to also use pressure. I want this to look like the light is hitting this sphere and illuminating it. So I want my highlight to stay white. And we know that whenever we're near a highlight, anytime we add any material, graphite or color pencil, it's going to be a lighter color near the highlight. So I'm going to go with light pressure with yellow. And as I work away from the highlight, I'm going to increase my pressure. I'm going to allow my yellow to become a little bit more noticeable. I am once again using the circular shading technique. And I'm going to work on just completing some yellow highlight light areas down into my midtone region before I start working in the blues up to my midtone region. So I zoomed in a little bit. Yellow is a very difficult color to pick up, but I do have some yellow. I did vary the pressure, so I have a lighter amount of it around my highlight area, and I applied more pressure to deepen it in my midtones. So now I'm going to come in with my blue, and I'm going to add in my area of core shadow. I want to remember about my reflected light area, so I want to make sure that I don't apply too much pressure there. And I'm going to work a little bit up to my midtone region to create that green midtone with my blue and yellow mixing together. Okay, so I have a structure here of yellow around my highlight, some green midtones, and my blue down more into my shadows. I put some green down here where the reflected light is. Thinking about what reflected light is, it's still a shadowed area. It just happens to be illuminated by light bouncing back up. So I want to see what it looks like if I do put that green midtone in there to represent both that it's a shadowed area and that light bouncing off of the surface. So now that I have a underlayer developed showing some form to my sphere, I'm going to now choose a color to go over top of it to create the final look of my sphere. Okay, so I've chosen a Prismacolor 330, testing it out on a piece of paper. It seems more like a dark pink rose color. I didn't want to use my 324. I used that a lot. And I was kind of looking, I wanted something that would contrast against these so I can really see what this underpainting can do with a color pretty far to the other side of the color wheel for it. I didn't want to use a green because the midtones are greens. I didn't want to use a blue because my shadow's blue. I looked at purple, and that was a possibility. But I think I'm going to try this color because before, my 324 red was a mid-tone red color. So this is a lighter one. So I want to see what this underpainting can do with a lighter color. So what I'm going to do is similar to what I did in the value scales. Again, I still have my highlight here, so that means I'm going to have lighter values up here. I still want to watch my pressure down here where my reflected light is. I don't want as heavy of a pressure. But where my core shadow area is, working my way through the midtones, I want a little more pressure, and of course ease up as I head towards that highlight. So that's my plan, is to layer over top of it this 330 color. And again, using pressure, just like we did in graphite during this practice, to create the form. Okay, so now that I have my color applied with with values, now I want to look at my cast shadow. So for my cast shadow, I'm going to go with a complementary, and since my color I used as the main body, even though I used the blues and the yellows for the underpainting of highlight and shadow. So for my main body, I'm going to use the 330 as my complementary. So since it's a pinkish rosish color, I'm going to go with a green for this. And I'm going to still use the underpainting. So where my darkest part of my shadow, I'm going to put the blue, and since I like to practice a little bit of fading, and value change, I'm going to add some yellow to it and then put the green with it. Now, since my midtones are green, I'm going to try to pick a green that doesn't match my midtone green, just to see what it looks like with a different color of green with it. And again, I'm choosing this green color because I used a rose pink red color. Opposite, of course, of red is green. And since it is a rose color, we're getting a little closer to like a like a reddish purple. So I'm going to want the complement to that, which would be more of a yellow green. So I'm going to see if I have that in my set, and if so, I'm going to try it with my cast shadow. So I do have a color that is like a yellow green. It is my 313 in the Prismacolor. And just like I did up here, I'm going to layer over top of my shadow with this color. Okay, so there's my completed sphere. I do think I'm going to darken my reflected light a tiny bit. Now that I have the shadow in, it's a little bit too bright and it needs to be toned down a little bit. But that is basically my finished sphere. So for this assignment, you're going to do 4 spheres in total. You're going to decide which of the value scales you're going to do for each sphere. When you're done, make sure you do label them. So this was my underpainting. And this was with the yellow and blue. And then I used 330 for my color. My shadow was 313. Okay. So do make sure you label which one you are using and complete 4 of these. So it's going to look something similar to this. This is a photocopy of one I did a couple years ago with another group of students. So you have your choice of using pressure, though I'd hope that since we've already done something similar to that with graphite, you wouldn't choose this one. You could also use your black and white that we practice. You can use your complementary. So here's the medium blue color with orange to create my value. You can use you don't have to use medium blue. You can use your color and adjacent. So in this case, I use medium blue and purple. Here I use medium blue and green. And then of course you also have the option of using different values in the same hue. So I used medium blue, dark blue, sky blue, and ultramarine for this one. So choose your 4 value scales that you want to use on this and complete like I did here. Complete your sphere using that value scale. And then for your cast shadow, whatever color you use as your main color, do your shadow in the complementary. So I'm going to continue to work with my spheres. Upload a photograph of all 4 of your spheres completed to the assignment.